Hello, and welcome to another episode of Casting Views, a podcast where we talk about really anything and everything that interests us and, well, cast some views. Now, this episode is going to be slightly different, but before we get into it, I'm going to pass over to Dan because he's got some promo to do for us.
Hi, I'm Dan. Um, yeah, as normal, we've got another promo. This time it's for Super Familiar with the Wilsons, and they are a great podcast. Just so funny if you listen to Josh and Amanda. And I've recently really got into his. He's got some ingenious music quiz. So have a listen to him and see if you can solve his cryptic riddles. Let's say that. I've managed to solve a couple, and he'll say with help from him, but I'm going to say it wasn't. It was on my own. So yeah, sit back and let's hear from them.
The Super Familiar with the Wilsons podcast. You know that family whose house you hung out in when you were a kid? The house was a little loud and chaotic, but always fun, and sometimes felt more home than home. Well, that's us.
We're the Wilsons, and we welcome you into our podcast with silly chat, ridiculous games, and interviews with interesting people.
Like a spin doctor. The Super Familiar with the Wilsons podcast.
Welcome home.
And we're back. Now, this episode. Obviously, every week in reality, we are kind of unscripted. We do just pick a subject. It might be something in the news. It might be something that just we're interested in. And we kind of just have a discussion about it. But, you know, we come with notes, to be fair. Now, this episode is going to be slightly different because this is going to be considered our end of season 1 review.
Woo! Season 1.
Woo! Season 1, as if we're like South Park or like Breaking Bad. Hopefully, we go on for that many
Previously
seasons.
on Casting Views.
You know what? We should do that for when we open up for season 2. No, it should just be
there you
all of
go.
the worst gags and best technical difficulty bloopers.
Like Lost, the opening of Lost.
Yeah. But yeah, we don't really have any kind of script for this. It's really going to be more so like an unfiltered, unedited chat between me and Dan, just about the podcast, just generally. It's also funny because the end of season review actually does coincide with the end of a lot of football seasons, so we might throw a bit of that in there.
I think so. Soccer.
We can't get away with it. Like we are.
No,
we are British.
I'm trying to teach them.
But yeah, so I mean, where do you want to start? Do you want to talk about previous eps? Do you want to talk a little bit about the end of the season, not related to us?
A little bit both. So the way I thought about this is going to be normally what happens before we press record when we sit down to do an episode, isn't it? It's going to be the half hour before we actually press the record button.
So if you are hearing this, you are going to be hearing it unfiltered. If we do have tech difficulties, you'll just experience it with us this time.
Yeah, so I just thought as we're going to have a couple of, well, I think I can't remember if you mentioned, but we're going to have a possibly 2 week gap, a break, just to recalibrate. But yeah, I mean, we've been doing this now since I think the first episode went out in September.
Yeah.
So what's that? That's 8 months. So it's been a good old slog, and I think we've only missed one episode in between.
Yeah.
And that was due to an operation.
Could have done casting. Yeah, well, we did do casting views from a cast. We should have thought of a gimmick for the operation one, really, shouldn't we?
Yeah. I think it's just commenting on a couple of things. I said to you the other night that it still doesn't feel like we've nailed down our intro.
Yeah. This is the big point because it's always like the single most awkward bit of the podcast. I think is when it's just like, I mean, I do like a bit of a hello and welcome back, but I guess do you know who I've stolen it from? I've stolen the hello from Ashens on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Don't say that.
But I was just like, well, anything that I do to open up is going to be like something that somebody's already done anyway, unless I'm like terrible about it and I'm like, yeah, welcome back.
I think our endings are okay. We got that snappy outro.
Yeah, the snappy outro that I still don't get right either way. So every other episode, I destroy the beginning and then I destroy the ending as well. But yeah, maybe we should get a script together for the intro, or like maybe a jingle. I know that I don't know if we can talk about this. Obviously, did we ever put in? I can't remember now. Hawking back to the beginning episodes, you created like a jingle, didn't you?
See, I did. I think before we released episode 1, I think we did a trailer.
Trailer.
So go check that out.
Yeah. That was a proper big throwback. So maybe we should just get on a mic.
Might do another Uke tune for season 2.
Yeah, or we should do it with just like things that we can find in our house. So like I come to yours, get some pots and pans out,
Yeah.
and do
Well, I was
drums.
going to say we add some drum and bass to the ukulele.
Yeah, exactly. We could get someone maybe in the background to beatbox.
I guess kind of what's been your standout episode or episodes? I was
Whew. I think there are a couple that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the Cult of Celebrity one.
yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
think I always thought that was my favorite one, but that kind of took a little bit of criminality with like human nature and psychology, and I've always kind of been interested in that regardless. So I think that one was particularly interesting to me. There were some of the really early ones that I liked as well, like the world records one. I think is always one that we'll
yeah,
harpen back to, because what's funnier than talking about how many balloons a bloke can pop by firing darts with farts? Like, it's one of those. And then some of the collabs have actually been quite good as well. Just generally having chats with lots of different people, it
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
opens a
yeah,
nice dynamic. So obviously we've done quite a lot in succession recently, and I missed one obviously to due to views from a cast.
yeah.
But yeah, I think I've enjoyed the collabs as well, just because again we've done them with people that aren't from the UK, and so it's been a cool kind of like cultural perspective thing as well, to be honest.
Well, and technically we've done one from the UK, but he was from Scotland, so it's still another
Yeah.
country.
Oh, yeah,
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 yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's true, actually. Yeah. Sorry, I'm talking
I
about
think that
England
to me,
separately as an entity.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't upset. I think I think that's what's been pleasing for me since launching it, because when we did start it, I think we just wanted to have fun, and we are, and we do. Honestly, people, we do.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
my God. Imagine if this is unfiltered. I'm like, Dan, what are you lying for?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Why'd you work me so hard for these episodes? We've kind of found our brain trust group, who are brilliant, and yeah, we've I think the collaborations have been brilliant. That was initially an unexpected thing, but have really kicked off. And so yeah, we had Chat Tsunami, we've had the Cult Worthy, we've been on them, they've been on ours, Unchefed, and I mean, who could forget the Sugar Coated Sisters?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that was it was just a great ep. It was hilarious. And you know what? I think we probably could have been sat there for about 6 hours.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. If it wasn't midnight when we logged off.
Yeah.
Actually, I forgot to say to you, they said your intro sounded like the like a character from a horror film.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like your deep south voice. It sounded like it's like. So do you wanna give them a little burst of it? Just do you wanna say hello to Karen and Anne again?
And welcome to Cast and Views. Hello, Carol and Ann. It's a pleasure to have had you on. It is. Do you know what it is? It is true. If anybody from the UK tries an American accent, they just go deep south. It's just what you do. It's a
Yeah,
bit
it's
like
deep
when you
south,
say UK as a general, not even specifically England. What does everybody do? Receive pronunciation. It's just what you go for. Mary
or it's
Poppins and that.
all right, governor. All
Yeah.
right,
All right,
all right,
governor.
love that. All right,
Lemon squeezer,
uh,
top geezer, Bacardi breezer.
go on, pears. Having a pear. Well, it's either deep south or it's is it like New York? Oh, forget about it.
I'm walking here.
Yeah, I'm walking here. Forget about it. But yeah, so the collabs, and we've already got more lined up actually for when we do come back. So stay tuned. We might do some collabs a little different, and they don't know that yet. But yeah, we got some we
So
we
if you're
got some
listening to this, we're
collabs.
dropping it on you now.
Actually, I've just noticed your speech thing on my screen is going faster than mine.
Well, that's got to be funny when we put this episode out. If I'm just 10 seconds ahead of you,
Is
I feel
yours?
like we're going to
Does it
keep
look
all
like
of
that?
this in.
Does it look like that on yours?
No, moving at a steady pace on mine to yours.
Mine's moving nice and steady. Oh, maybe. Anyway, yeah, that's embarrassing. But yeah, oh, and also, the fact that we got approached, also one of the more recent ones. Sorry. Oh God, this is embarrassing. How can we forget the bigger movie pod?
Oh
Actually,
yeah. God,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah.
yeah. That I mean, yeah. Sorry, bigger movie. They were awesome as well. I mean,
Yeah. That's the thing. I think that was like the first collab. Obviously, the film in which we were
yeah,
tasked with watching was horrific, but I feel like that made the episode actually way more enjoyable. If I'm being
yeah.
honest, it was yeah, it
And I
was it
watched
was
two
good.
films for that as well. Only one was used.
And also, just talking back to that episode, still don't care. Stop All My Mumble Shoot is a good film. If
Oh,
anybody
which
wants to pick
reminds
that up.
me. Oh, I've got something for you actually. But before we move on to that, yeah, bigger movie pod. just saying, still haven't received my money for the 3.49 extra movie I had to watch on Amazon Prime. Just saying. Um,
Yeah.
I need to say to you, actually, I've been having conversations with some of the podcasts, and they disagree that Cars is the best Pixar movie. I'm hearing that it's mid at best.
Yeah, well, do you know what? It is obviously disappointing to hear. However, I do want to say to anybody that's listening that thinks it's mid at best, it's unfortunate, but factually you are incorrect. And I think that's how we'll leave
Them
it.
big fighting words. I'm gonna have to deal with this. I'm gonna have to deal with this, but it's fighting talk.
No, honestly, I've got too much time for Cars, soundtrack, everything, how it makes me feel, and it's also a good racing film. We said this in the collaboration that we did. It's just a good racing film
But
anyway.
someone said a good point to me. Now I haven't seen it, but they said there are no humans in it, right?
No, no.
So they said, why have the cars got doors and door handles then? I don't know. I haven't seen it, but it sounds like a plot hole.
Well, it sounds like yeah, but they are cars still. You know, it's a world where cars exist, but it's a bit like, for instance, we as humans have tunnels in and out of our bodies, don't we? So I
Yeah,
guess to
yeah,
any other context, like for a car needs air conditioning to work. So what if your air conditioning breaks down? You need to get inside it. So I just look at that as a vessel for car surgery, perhaps.
yeah. Car surgery. Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
There you
That's your
go.
plot hole,
It's been
Phil. Yeah,
answered. That
yeah.
that
What are you gonna
that
do
that was
now?
that told you, everyone,
Yeah,
and you know who
Monsters
you
Inc.
are.
Monsters Inc. Mid. Toy Story
You,
mid.
you know who you are. Here we go. This is how it's going to be. Going back to episodes. I like the fun ones. So I like the records, like you said, record breakers. I like the unusual competition that we did part one to. We've got to do a
Yeah,
part two at some
yeah, we
point.
will do a part two to that.
Oh, I like the unusual ways to make money. That went down quite well, I think.
Yeah, unusual ways to make money was quite good. It was just a challenging moral episode from the perspective of like, would we sell our bathwater for money?
Yeah. But and you know another one outside, like I said, the collabs should be put apart because they've all been brilliant. Each and every one has been brilliant. But the one that also stands out to me was the cryptocurrency, but only because, and we did say it. I mean, we're not afraid to admit it. We kind of decided like the night before that we would talk about that, I think, and neither of us really are experts in the field. It was fair to say, right?
Experts, like the fact that you've even used experts there. We don't know anything about cryptocurrency. What
But
is
we
it?
got
What is
about
a
an
bit?
hour out of it.
What is a Bitcoin? How do we use a Bitcoin? Excuse me, sir. I'm walking into Tesco. Can I pay with a Bitcoin, please? Like, but you know what it is? I think the concept behind it still stands because you don't. I've always believed you don't necessarily need, unless it's something super serious. But we're just having a brief chat about crypto.
Yeah,
We were kind of taking it from the perspective of the way it's viewed, the way that we look at it from kind of our exposure to it on social media, that sort of thing. So I think it's true. I mean, now obviously it's died down, and I've seen lots of like big YouTubers tweet about huge crypto losses recently. But yeah, at the time you couldn't really go anywhere without someone trying to shove Bitcoin at you or XRP or whatever it was at the time. So I think from the perspective of the way that we were looking at it, I think that was a pretty fair rep whilst we
yeah.
knew
Oh,
nothing.
and it was fun approaching it like that. But also another.
Next episode, Lucio and Dan discuss open heart surgery.
Well, it might. Well, actually, why are you giving it away? You could have kept that. Yeah. And it's been interesting, some of the episodes we've done, how we've seen it feature later on. So crypto is kind of big now. I mean, not saying we've discovered crypto, but that's quite big in the news now. We kept saying one of the things we've said is we'd like to have done some reviews or return to some subjects. And
Yeah.
we've seen crypto big in the news recently for it plummeting. Let's see how quickly the market moves if it dates this, and it's like surges in the next couple of days. But we've seen that plummet. What else? We discussed the cult of celebrity. You based it on, or you introduced it with the Travis Scott-ish incident that
Yeah,
happened at
yeah.
that concert. And I think he's back in the news this week for releasing his first single, I think it was, since then.
Wouldn't know, haven't listened to it for obvious reasons.
We did sport one, didn't we? And
Yeah,
we saw some other podcasts talk about some of the things that we discussed as well, didn't we? It was weird to
yeah,
remember. I won't
yeah,
say anything, but
yeah. I can't. Which episode was that we saw that for?
was it not? Um, It must have been in social. It was in social media. I think it was a bad
Yeah,
side.
it was
Yeah,
because you discussed separately points about social media teams and players and that sort of
yeah,
thing, and there were really specific instances
yeah,
of
yeah,
like another podcast releasing after us, really, really quite big, literally raising basically the way that
yeah,
we said it, the exact same points. And I looked at it,
yeah.
I was just like, is it possible that somebody's like listened to this and then like
Because
discussed
you
the
sent
same
it to me.
thing?
If
Um,
not, it needs to feature on our huge coincidences part 2.
Yeah, yeah, it will do. You know what? Yeah, we will actually discuss it in detail and like name it in that
Yeah,
episode, and then we can kind of leave the viewers to kind of make their own judgments,
yeah,
like
yeah.
sending cease and desist letters.
Yeah. We've only done one of them, but I've got a feeling we'll do more of them. Or I want to do more in season 2. I like to talk about season 2. It makes it sound so official, doesn't it?
So
Um,
so
we did
so proper.
we we did one bonus episode up to now, haven't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
And like I said, the whole reason for that was to it was basically for me to see if we could turn around an episode. One to see could we limit our talking to half an hour.
yeah, yeah. It was more so. It was actually more so the issue, wasn't it?
Because
Really.
again, I'm sure we mentioned it before, but me and Lewis said, right, let's try to aim for 30, 45 minutes max for an episode. And I don't think we've come in at under an hour.
No, no, no. And then I think like some of the longest ones have gone on for about an hour and a half, isn't it? So
But
what we're
the
saying
longest
is,
one
you
is
can either
sugar coated, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You could
Yeah.
either watch a full length movie or you can listen to us.
Yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
what we're saying.
So we did the bonus to see one, could we limit it to half hour, which we actually did bang on. And two, whether I could turn because this was quite early on, whether I could turn around an episode in a night for if we could react to anything quickly, and it just shows our age that we don't react to anything quickly anymore, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
It's-
yeah. Do you know what I was
but
thinking as well?
go on.
Sorry, do you know what I was thinking as well? Do you know we spoke with Cultworthy about the death of the film industry in terms of
Yeah,
cinema and going
yeah.
to the theaters? Just thought to myself, I was like, maybe that's us. We're putting out episodes the same length as a feature length film. People are listening to us over going to the cinema.
I've actually my day is probably outside of work. Let's say my free time, my awake time
Great
outside of
caveat
work.
is I'm not doing it at work.
my my awake time outside of work. I would say entertainment wise, I'd probably say now it's probably like 70% listening to podcasts. I'd probably say 10% watching TV and 20% games, video gaming. I'd say I listen now more. I'd say podcast is my main form of entertainment now.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, to be honest, because I think it's easy to stick on, and irrespective of what you're doing, you can do it in the background whilst doing something else. Like to
Yeah,
me, if I do any washing up or whatever it might be, I like to have something in my ear while I'm
yeah,
doing it
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's just easier to get through something you don't like potentially as
yeah,
well. And that's the thing, like you're having a bit of a tidy up, you stick something on in the background, and in reality, a podcast is probably the easiest thing to listen to.
yeah. And it's just our podcast I listen to, by the way. Even actually talking about things coming back, even that the bonus one we did about the new Tottenham manager, didn't we? Conte,
Yeah,
we call it.
we did.
Can we count on Conte? And as we record this, it's about what 4 or 5 days away from the final game of the season, isn't it? And I
Yeah,
think we can count on Conte. I think
yeah,
is the answer to that, isn't it?
I'm hoping so. Obviously, with reference to the day that this was on, Arsenal have unfortunately bottled their chance at fourth place, and they've, not to make the pun about us being Tottenham fans, they've been a bit Spursy,
Yeah. But I
which
mean,
is
we are Tottenham, so we've
yeah,
still
yeah.
got one
So
game to do.
we've still got Norwich at the end of the season, which inevitably will lose 5-0 because of Timo Pukki scoring 5 goals or something stupid. So you can never count on Tottenham to do a job.
Actually, this episode will go out before the final game, so a few hours before the final game. So yeah, for our American listeners, check out the final day of the Premier League because there's still a lot. Well, you expect the top place to still be fought for, wouldn't you? I think City and Liverpool will probably still be fighting it out.
I tell you what, then, shall we do some predictions then for it?
I'll let you do predictions. I'm notoriously bad at this, so you go for
Right.
it.
Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna go bold. So I'm going to talk about the top of the table. So again, for any of our overseas listeners, the Premier League is a top division in English football, heavily contested. You'll know teams such as Manchester United, Arsenal, and two teams currently fighting for the title are Manchester City and Liverpool. There is a point gap between them with one game left in the season. Manchester City are playing somebody who I think is relatively easy, if I remember rightly. Although, so they are playing Aston Villa.
Oh yeah, but they're managed by ex-Liverpool legend.
Exactly. So my bold prediction is that Liverpool go ahead in their game, because all the games need to kick off at the same time, I think, don't they? I think
Yeah,
Liverpool go
they've
ahead.
won tonight. Liverpool have won tonight. They were playing Southampton, so
Oh, that's it, right. So I think Liverpool go ahead first in their fixture. I think this puts Manchester City under enormous pressure, but I think that Manchester City get the lead. I think they take the lead. I think Liverpool end up scoring probably 4 or 5 goals last game of the season. And then Steven Gerrard, Liverpool icon, who never won a Premier League with Liverpool, ends up winning a Premier League for Liverpool, 90+2 equaliser in the City game, Liverpool crown champions.
so you think Liverpool win?
Yeah, I just think that
Ah,
psychologically, Manchester City got knocked out of the Champions League in pretty mental fashion with the game that they played. And I think that psychologically, it's a bad thing going into the last game of the season. I think if Liverpool take the lead, all of a sudden, there is a pressure on Manchester City to score. And I think they'll
yeah,
get exposed for it, because we've seen plenty of times this season where Manchester City can be exposed. I don't mean to be funny. Tottenham have done the double over them this season.
yeah.
So when you look at Manchester City, there is a level of just no calm, considered football when the pressure's really on. And I think if Liverpool score first in the first 10 minutes of their game, I think that it will really, really put the pressure on City.
Do you think it'll be like? Do you remember that classic? They've spoken about it actually this week because they've done the statue of him. But was it 10 years ago when City won the first title with that classic Aguero moment?
Aguero,
Because it was
watch it,
United
drink it
finished.
in.
Yeah, well, United's game finished, didn't they? And they were top. And I
Yeah,
think City had a couple of minutes extra, and they scored in that last minute. I mean, that's what the final game day is all
yeah.
about, isn't it?
And that's the thing. Do you know what's funny about Liverpool this season as well is they are still up for a quadruple, aren't they? Because they just beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final, and they're in the Champions League final, and they're
Yes,
still in the running for the league.
yeah.
Imagine if Liverpool not only stole the league title from Manchester City on the last game of the season, but also topped the Aguero moment by winning it in a fashion like that.
Yeah.
It
Well,
would literally be the most horrific set of circumstances if you were a
you've
Manchester
heard
City
it here
fan.
first. You've
Yeah,
heard
and
it
that's
here
the way I'm
first.
going. In other news, Tottenham get top 4. Sorry, Arsenal fans, but there's no way, you know.
It has to now. I
Yeah,
actually
it would have
said,
to.
I said to my other half, I said, if we don't, then I don't think I want to follow football anymore. Or I don't think they deserve me following anymore if they can't. However, crazy things have happened. And maybe we should do before the season. Maybe we should do let's see where we're at before the season starts, and we do it as a bonus so people can dip in or out, if they're interested in soccer
Yeah,
or not.
bonus episode, and it's going to kick off with being like, well, following Spurs' 3-0 defeat to Norwich at the end of last season. We're going to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, it came
Oh,
back to haunt us, didn't it? So, you know what? Do you know what it is? Is the fact that we talked about it now is literally tailor made, isn't it?
yeah.
I'm hoping. And then if anybody is interested, I don't think this will happen, but I hope Burnley get relegated because they sacked Sean Dyche.
Yeah.
For the Americans
And
listening, they're probably just like,
quite,
who and what is a Sean Dyche?
and they're quite anti-football now. It
Yeah,
feels like.
yeah.
Yeah. But on the podcast again, I think we can say this as well. It's also been quite a year in terms of health and injuries, hasn't it? So I think during our podcast reign, which is we've said it's been 8 months, like I say, you've caught COVID twice, haven't you?
Yeah. Caught COVID twice.
Broke your elbow.
Broke my elbow. Yeah.
Yeah. I had an operation on my nose.
Yeah.
I have just had COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally, before we started recording, I ruptured a disc in my back.
Oh yeah,
So,
God, I remember
yeah,
that. Yeah, that was a long. Yeah.
which kind of delayed it a little bit. So it's kind of been a bit of a, a
It's been
battle as well, hasn't it?
yeah, it's been a rough 8 months for us both, really, isn't it? Like, circumstances have been bad, but we've soldiered through, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
when you think about it, all those things. I mean, I know these things happen, especially the COVID thing, but it's maybe we should do a medical one. We were saying all these medical advances is where the future's at. Maybe we'll be
oh,
needing that.
maybe we should do an episode. You know what? Maybe we should do an episode on, like not strange illnesses, as if that's something funny, but do you know there are really, really rare instances of very strange, particular like medical issues. So like I remember reading once that there's a woman who's got a condition where her body is so sensitive to temperature adjustments, like a drop of water could potentially be like fatal to
Wow,
her
wow.
because it will change the temperature of her body if it lands on her. So she needs to live in a really specific set of conditions. So maybe we could do something like that, like the
Maybe.
strangest
Actually, you've
instances,
just
or like
pinged an idea off in my brain. Yeah, yeah, because I think one of the things that actually worked quite well as well, we did Food Month, didn't we,
yeah,
recently as well? And that seemed to go quite well. I think both for us, in terms of the subjects we spoke about, and that kind of really led us to get a couple of guests on to kind of join in on the fun. So I've got an idea for well, you've had one that we spoke about in what I called our creative production meeting, which is just you and me over Zoom, right?
yeah,
You've got an idea, and I've just now got another idea that's cropped up from that. So yeah, we'll probably do a few more theme months. Definitely would like people to get in contact with us. So do drop us an email or a tweet. Let us know if you listen to the show what you think. Get in touch if there's a subject you want to do, or if you want to be on the show or anything. We'll take anyone.
yeah, yeah. Like yeah, even if there's absolutely nothing interesting, you have to, even if maybe it's just an idea that a person has that they think
If you
would be
just want to
interesting
come
to
in and
talk
sit
about.
on the episode while Lou and I record it, I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
just want,
Either way, it'd be like behind the curtain, like breaking the fourth wall almost.
or if you've got a
Yeah.
great intro, you could come on and just record the intro each episode for us. You could,
Oh
you
my
could
god!
say,
Imagine how cool it would be if we could get a different person to do the intro every app.
well, I
We just
think watch
say,
this space on that. I think watch this
yeah,
space on that.
that would be
Yeah.
great. Just just a random listener, or like somebody who just wants to turn around and be like, "Hey, welcome to Casting Views."
So generally about this, I mean, 8 months ago, did you think you'd be doing a podcast?
No, no. To be honest, it wasn't within the realm of what I was thinking about doing. I'm glad I have because it's killed a lot of free time, I think.
Yeah, it hasn't it just hasn't it just?
The thing is, as well, I think it came out of more of like a requirement for the fact that COVID was a thing, working from home was very much a thing, and we were a bit more limited in terms of what we could do.
Yeah.
Because at the time there were restrictions and that sort of thing. But I feel like once you've got into that, it would be
I
difficult to
just
kind of turn around and
Yeah, I just really wanted to get a podcast done, didn't I? I remember saying to you, I really want to do one of my own. And like I said, you were kind of like probably the easiest person to ask because
yeah, yeah. I was just I was just like
you're
the
not short of
bottom
a
of the
word or two.
barrel.
No, no,
Yeah,
you're not short of a word or two.
yeah, yeah. This is true.
And like we said before, it is just kind of like the conversations we would have. The aim was to kind of just try replicate that. Well, not replicate it, do it, basically, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like what we tried to capture was just a genuine like sense of this is just what we are, like this is actually just the chats that we'd have. So again, I feel like the episodes don't really, apart from Food Month, the episodes don't really have any kind of like proper direction in terms of like one idea from one week to the next week. But that's literally because that's the way we are in real life. Like we would just sit
Yeah,
and talk
yeah.
about something random, irrespective of whether or not we've seen it on Twitter or in the news or whatever it might be, because that's just the way we are. And I guess, yeah, like you said, we just wanted to capture that conversation.
We had a few episodes bagged at the start, didn't we? Just because we were new to it, but it is now recorded in the week, and sometimes the subject will change every day, won't it?
Yeah,
We
yeah.
might decide on a subject, then it'll be like, "Oh, have you seen this? Yeah, yeah, let's talk about that." And then it'll be like, "No, maybe we should go back to this one." And then we'll end up the night before saying, "No, no, no, let's do this." Yeah, it's been pretty cool. So like we said, have you had anyone come up to you, talk to you about it?
From like a personal and or like
Yeah,
work perspective potentially.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a few people that came up to me to say, I listened to X episode or this one or really like that. I remember the cult of personality. I don't know whether or not I'm biased because the cult of personality one was one that I enjoyed, but also it was the first ep where anybody referenced it to me in my real life. So someone was just like, I listened to this podcast episode. I was just like, no, I was like, no, you actually? I was like, thanks. Like it was also like that, and they were just like, yeah, it's actually bang on. Like what you said about X celebrity or this point or that point was like spot on. You've basically just said what I would have said in that situation,
Yeah.
and I think that's quite cool because when somebody comes up to you and kind of says, "Oh yeah, I agree with what you said because that's exactly what I would have said," it kind of feels like you're in tune with what people kind of feel, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's
Yeah.
almost like, are you just an outlet for somebody to turn around and listen to someone that kind of they would agree with anyway? But I think that the whole point of this has always been like, you can agree or disagree, but it's just, that's the thing, we just cast, irrespective of how ludicrous an opinion it might be, on
Yeah. Yeah.
anything. And that's the thing. Sometimes, we're going to capture a lot of the market in terms of what people think, and then sometimes we're going to capture little ones with unpopular opinions, like my car's one. But yeah, so I think that's really what the intention was, and I'm glad that it's worked that way as well.
Yeah. Well, I think each one we've done. Yeah, I'm not necessarily saying they're all original, like original concepts, not that anyone else hasn't done. But I think we've definitely approached it in our way, and I've had a lot of fun doing them. It's been good. So, the other thing I was going to say, what I did want to release as a, and I might still do it eventually. Do you remember we did a practice episode before we
Yeah,
did it?
yeah.
And what was, it was about? Oh, you wanted to talk about, it was at the time of Britney Spears and her, what's it called, the
Conservatorship. Yeah.
conservatorship, when that hit the news. And I think that was actually a good episode. But I went back the other night to start listening to it and edit it, and it was when we had a different name. Do you remember Can you remember what it was going to be? I come up with a different name initially.
Oh God, I can't remember.
It
Like, we
was
had
called,
stuff. Oh, go
but
on
it's
then.
called Let's Talk About.
Yeah, yeah. It was
We were
just
gonna.
called Let's Talk About. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there you go, behind the curve. We were going to be called, because before I approached Lou, I'd come up with Let's Talk About, because I hadn't seen it used anywhere. But one of the problems was we couldn't get a uniform approach across all social media, could we?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so it was going to be Let's Talk About Pod, LTA, or something like that. So I think then we had that 2-hour horrible session at your house where we tried to have a brainstorm for a
Yeah,
name, and
just for context as well, we literally just sat at the table with computers like flat out, just blank. Like, you
said
could tell
random
that,
words.
yeah,
Yeah.
you could tell that we're like, why we're not like creative directors anywhere. But yeah, it was, we were just saying random things. Like, I was just like, oh well, there's two of us. What about like two peas and a pod? But that doesn't make sense, because what's the
Well, no,
relevance
I
to
think you were going to
peas?
say, because my surname begins with P, and I think you were going to say, let's pretend your one starts with
Yeah,
a
I was just
P.
gonna be like, let me just use a fake alias and just call myself Paul.
and and then I remember, yeah, it was literally after about 2.5 hours at your house. I remember kind of storming out your house, not because I was angry at you or anything, but just because I was so frustrated that we couldn't come up with a name,
Yeah,
because we had the
genuinely.
ideas.
But that's the thing, like, the ideas I think were a little bit more smooth to come along, but the name was just like, what do you want to be known as? And I think that's a way more difficult
Well,
thing,
it's important, isn't it? It's important.
especially when we
Um,
were looking at it. And again, like unchefed, again, former chef, right? When you look at it, when you look at
yeah,
sugar coated murder, oh, we bake
brilliant,
and we
brilliant.
also talk about true crime. Like, the creativity that comes along with some of the other podcasts that even we've just collaborated with, let alone
Yeah.
let alone the other ones that are out there. And then we were like, oh yeah, let's talk about peas in a pod. Doesn't make sense because we're just making it up at that point.
However, it was interesting. The name has actually worked for us, at least with Antonio. I can't remember if it was when he was on ours or I was on his. He said, because obviously he's into films. He came across our pod and thought it was about casting in films, and
Ah,
that's what
right.
hooked him on it And then he's actually been, a huge supporter as well.
He listens to the first episode expecting to hear, oh, talking about the way that this actor's been cast, and then all of a sudden he just hears us talking about who can yam the most hot dogs in 12
Yeah.
minutes. He's just like, I didn't expect this, but I like it.
Actually, what was our first episode was technology, wasn't it? Yeah, and you
Yeah, it
you
was.
brought to
Yeah.
the party some weird gadgets, didn't you, that I had
Yeah,
to
I
rate?
remember. And then we rated them like the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
umbrella-less umbrella.
You love yeah, you love a rating, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. I love a rating, overrated, underrated. I just think it's a good. Do you know what it is? It's a good like sign off, I think, for an app. So,
No, it
you
is.
know,
It is. It
and
is.
although I do think I lower the tone a bit, because again, we when we had Unchefed, like, it was all about, like, his beautiful understanding of like food from like a historical and political perspective. And then I was just like, is ranch dressing overrated?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your
Full English.
obsession
Would you
with?
eat a full
Yeah,
English?
would you eat a full English? What's your obsession with cheese in a can? Like, it was just, But I guess that's probably what you get, isn't it? So I feel like
Yeah.
you're probably the more refined one of the two of us, I think.
Who me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if you could
Okay,
use the
thank
word
you.
refined, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's somewhere on that level. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
on that equation. Was there anything else you wanted to say before you sign us off? Because all I was going to say is, yeah, no, again, it's been really good fun. Thank you. So this will be season 1. I just want to say thank you to all our supporters. So the problem, I was thinking about naming them, but then you're going to miss someone and you're going to feel terrible. So all I'm going to say is thank you to all the pods who interact with us regularly on Twitter, who listen to us. The Brain Trust, thank you. You know who you are. That's who I will give a big shout out because they're huge, huge supporters. And so yeah, so thank you for that. Keep your eye and ear open for season 2 because we have got good things coming.
I'll tell you what, on the nature shout outs, can I do one personal one to a listener?
Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it.
Mag, if you're still listening,
Oh yes,
I know
yeah.
you're listening from Zambia. You are our one Zambian listener. Just want to say big shout out. Friend of mine that I went to university with.
Hi,
When
Mag.
we were doing our statistics episode, I saw, episode listener, Zambia. I was just like, that's amazing. And then I tried to put 2 and 2 together. I was just like, it must be. And then started had like a bit of a chat, and it turns out it was on the way to work. So Mag, big shout out. Thank you for being
Yeah,
an
absolutely.
international
I've
listener.
actually said, if Mag, if you want to come on the show,
Yeah. All seriousnness, we could talk about whatever you wanted to talk about.
we'll
Yeah,
we'll
even if
sort
you
an
wanted to
episode
put
out.
a discussion to us, you'd be a great guest as well. But yeah, I think that's probably all for me.
There is one more thing, sorry, actually on that. I think we mentioned it in an episode, and I did let you know this week, but we now have had listeners in the 60 plus group,
Oh
and
yeah,
we've
yeah.
now had listeners in the 18 to 22 group. So now the only group we haven't had is 0 to 17. So if you've got any toddlers who can't get to sleep one night or are acting up, can you set them up a Spotify? I don't know if they can, if that's a problem, but if you can set them up an Amazon Prime account or something, let's get your toddlers listening to Casting Views.
Maybe we need to mark one episode and one single episode only as suitable for all ages, and then we'll capture that group.
Yeah, what was it? PG. We'll do
Yeah,
it
we could be
PG
PG.
rated, yeah.
Yeah, imagine. Oh my god, we're going like WWE. We're going from the Attitude Era to the PG era. All of our listeners are gonna leave us. It's just an episode of 40 minutes of us singing Baby Shark.
Oh no, now I've got that in my head, thank you.
That's all right.
Right, so do you think you can do the outro on our final episode of season 1 in one
I'm
go?
I'm hoping that we do it. Maybe we should get. Oh no, do you know what it is? The outro is really good. Maybe we should change the intro every season so people can know what season they're listening to as well. A little bit like how is it the Harry
Well, we've got a
Potter
couple of
intro gets
weeks.
darker and darker.
Yeah, well, we've got a couple of weeks to sort that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mag, if you want to get in touch, pop me a message or tweet at us on official channels. You know where you're looking for. If anybody does
Oh,
have any ideas,
yeah,
sorry, go on.
yeah,
Any
go on. No,
ideas
no,
for
no,
any
you're
episode,
gonna do it, yeah.
and or even if you wanted to be on an episode and you had like a brilliant idea or some kind of form of like field that you were an expert in, that would be cool as well. Either pop us an email at castingviewspod@gmail.com or a tweet at castingviews, because we did manage to get that Twitter handle.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
uniform Twitter handles
yeah.
are our thing. And we will, of course, leave you on. We know there are many podcasts from which you can choose, but we thank you for listening to Casting Views.